Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Not all Force users are created equally. Just like in any profession, there are different levels of mastery when it comes to a Jedi or Sith. A Padawan will rarely ever beat a Sith Lord, and a Jedi Master should be able to handle a bunch of Sith initiates all by themselves. But this massive gap in skill doesn't just apply to physical prowess and power in the Force, it basically applies to everything. A Grandmaster like Yoda or a Sith Lord like Darth Sidious will be light years ahead of their apprentices in almost every way, including how they perceive time in the course of history. When Qui-Gon Jinn became one with the cosmic force, his view of time changed from a more linear path to something that was non-linear and more accessible. A Force ghost like Qui-Gon Jinn will have seen the past, future, and present, and as he gives away more of his physical presence, his connection to the cosmic force will grow. Grandmaster Yoda was quite advanced in his connection to the Force, although not quite as advanced as Qui-Gon Jinn. He was still wise beyond his years and very cautious when trying to interpret the dreams and visions that did come before him. Yoda was always concerned that prophetic visions could lead to fear of the future, which of course could lead to the dark side. He warned Anakin about this when the young Jedi came to him about his own premonitions. Nonetheless, Yoda was able to predict more than his fair share of events throughout the course of his life, and he was able to do this because of a combination of Force powers and hundreds of years of life experience. Today we'll be looking at some of the predictions that he made that actually came true. During the blockade of Naboo and the events that followed, a Sith warrior was sighted and quickly defeated, but not before killing one of the Jedi's most talented masters, Qui-Gon Jinn. The presence of a Sith warrior was troubling for the Jedi Council, who had believed the Sith to be extinct. At Qui-Gon Jinn's funeral, Yoda and Mace Windu were discussing the appearance of the Sith. Yoda makes a prediction that only two there are, a master and an apprentice. Although the two Jedi aren't aware that the Sith Master they're looking for is sitting right next to them, Yoda is correct to point out the fact that there most likely are two Sith Lords because this is the Rule of Two era. But how he knew about all of this is unknown. When Darth Bane started the Rule of Two, the Jedi had assumed he, along with every last Sith, had perished during the Battle of Ruusan. Technically speaking, the Jedi shouldn't know anything about the Rule of Two. Later on, during the Clone Wars, when Yoda encountered the spirit of Darth Bane, Yoda once again confirms his knowledge of the Rule of Two, which makes me believe that the Jedi Master has studied the Sith quite closely in an effort to understand them. Something that would have been forbidden for most of the Jedi to do, but of course, as the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, he gets to create his own rules. The appearance of Maul wasn't the only thing that was bothering Yoda at the time. The death of Qui-Gon Jinn left a major issue unresolved. Right before the Jedi Master died, he had instructed his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi to carry on the training of young Anakin Skywalker. Qui-Gon had identified the young sketchy slave from Tatooine as the Chosen One. The Council originally had denied Anakin from joining the Jedi Order because he was far too old. But now that he was gone, the Jedi Council didn't really want to deny his last wish. I mean, that would be kind of awkward. Yoda admits that Anakin might be the Chosen One, but at the same time, he sternly warns Obi-Wan that training Anakin might lead to grave danger. Regardless, Obi-Wan says he will train Anakin, even if the Council does not allow him. The last thing the Temple would want was a pair of rogue Jedi running around. And so the Council votes in Obi-Wan's favor, but Yoda reminds Obi-Wan that he disagrees with this entire situation. Whatever he sees in Anakin, he knows that it will lead to no good. In the opening days of the war, both the Republic and Separatist Alliance focused heavily on securing access to Hutt space. The neutral territory was an open passage from the core of the galaxy to the Outer Rim. Whoever controlled it could circumvent the front lines being drawn by both factions. Yoda had been scheduled to meet the monarch of Toydaria on a nearby moon. The Republic had been hoping to build a military base in Toydarian territory in order to defend the sector from Separatist interests. But when Republic forces arrive to the local system, they find themselves flying straight into a Separatist ambush, and Yoda and his clone troopers are forced to ditch their ride in a set of escape pods. But as they are approaching the surface, Yoda senses a disturbance in the Force. He believes that their trials have only begun. Darkness awaits them on the ground. Yoda turns out to be right. Not only is the king of Toydaria now accompanied by Sith assassin Asajj Ventress, she has an entire company of droids deployed on the moon ready to hunt them down. Yoda and his small team of clones will have to use every tool at their disposal to survive and defeat the Separatist forces and show the king of Toydaria that the Republic is a worthy ally. Luckily, Yoda, as usual, can see all the threats coming way before they actually reach him. In the middle of the Clone Wars, an old enemy of the Jedi reappears, Maul. Maul had been defeated as a Padawan by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and been living in exile for more than a decade, dreaming about getting his revenge. Maul and his brother Savage Opress had taken over a village on the outer rim planet of Raydonia, and begun massacring the peaceful inhabitants that lived there. The two brothers would continue killing more innocents until Obi-Wan Kenobi showed up. Now this clearly was a trap, and most of the Jedi Council agreed it was dangerous to let Obi-Wan Kenobi venture to Raydonia alone. But Obi-Wan was confident in his own abilities, having dealt with Maul before all by himself, and so he wishes the journey to Raydonia without any escorts. Interestingly enough, Yoda also supports Obi-Wan's plans, despite this obviously being a trap. After Obi-Wan leaves, Mace Windu protests that Maul's capture is extremely important, and sending Obi-Wan by himself was way too risky. Yoda responds that although the danger is great to Obi-Wan, he might have an unexpected ally in his battle against the two brothers.
Not alone will Kenobi be. An unexpected ally he may have.
We're not really told how Yoda knows this, but it turns out that he's correct. Former Sith assassin Asajj Ventress was now working as a bounty hunter, and after the two Zabrak brothers robbed a bank, a bounty was placed on Savage Opress's head. Savage happened to be the former apprentice to Asajj Ventress, so she was quite interested in the job. After Obi-Wan walks straight into Maul's trap and gets captured, it's Asajj Ventress who springs Obi-Wan free, and she even gives him one of her lightsabers to help out. No one could have possibly seen this, aside from maybe Yoda. When Order 66 occurred, Master Yoda was stationed on the world of Kashyyyk, helping direct the local defenses of the planet against a Separatist droid invasion. Yoda had sensed the deaths of other Jedi due to Order 66, and therefore he was prepared when his own guard, Commander Gree, and a scout trooper attempted to gun him down. Not only did Yoda sense the massive amount of death and destruction Order 66 caused, months earlier, Yoda had a Force vision on Dagobah where he saw similar events unfold in a Force vision. He saw dozens of Jedi rush into battle against the clone troopers that once served them. Yoda was able to connect the pain that he felt along with the vision he had seen, and so he was prepared when the assassins came to take him. After the Battle of Hoth, Luke Skywalker travels to Dagobah where he seeks the tutelage of Master Yoda. After just a few short lessons on how to levitate rocks and a journey through a scary Force cave, Luke has a vision of his friends traveling to Bespin straight into a trap. Luke is so worried about their safety that he's willing to abandon all of his training and ditch Yoda and force ghost Obi-Wan. The two older Jedi are worried that Luke is unprepared for an encounter with a Sith like Vader. They don't want to lose him, just like how they lost Anakin all those years ago. But Luke isn't willing to wait and let his friends suffer, and so he flies away in his water-damaged X-Wing. Obi-Wan sadly remarks that Luke is their last hope, to which Yoda replies, "There is another." Now, originally, before Episode 6 was written, Luke had a sister who had a very similar upbringing to Rey, who actually has a similar upbringing to Luke, if you think about it, and she was basically Luke's equal in the Force. But the final version of Episode 6 has Leia become that sister, and as we can tell, she's also quite powerful in the Force, but decides to leave the Jedi path and get involved in politics. Some newer fans even think that Yoda is referring to Rey in this situation, who is the one who ultimately defeats Darth Sidious. If you think about it, Luke does manage to help his friends in the short term, but he ultimately fails to destroy the Sith, which is exactly what Yoda predicted right before his departure from Hoth. Luke tries to re-establish the Jedi Order, but Sidious destroyed it by corrupting his most powerful student. Luke never really stood a chance against Sidious, perhaps because he didn't listen to Yoda at that point. Instead of sitting on Dagobah and training, Luke decides to fight in a war that only temporarily defeats Palpatine and allows him to come back twice as strong. If you really think about it, the New Republic that was the result of the rebellion was a complete disaster and ended up basically setting the galaxy back another 20, 30 years. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.